Welcome to our new podcast, Kidswear Therapy. If you're listening, remember to hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Kidswear Therapy is a safe space to discuss the ups and downs, the positives, and the irritations of the kidswear industry. So join Linda, myself, and our wonderful guests on Kidswear Therapy. This podcast was recorded live in front of an audience at the 98th edition of Pitti Bimbo in January this year with our special guest, Pitti Immagine CEO Raffaello Napoleone. There was a bit of a delay setting up whilst Raffaello entertained the waiting crowd with his meta glasses. Linda and I interrupted our poor guest a little, but recording in front of a live audience was somewhat different to our usual setting. Raffaello talks openly about growing up, la dolce vita, and his introduction to fashion and the business of Pitti Bimbo. So we thought it perfect to release this special edition ahead of Pitti Bimbo 99 this week. Ciao, enjoy.
I remember very well Dolce Vita because we have been very lucky in our family. We used to live in Via Condotti, so the main street.
Oh, it's the main street, yeah.
And then number 9 between the Gucci and Bulgari shop on the 4th floor. And in front of the Caffè Greco, where Little Tony or the main actor or singers or also politicians, international, used to pass through. And so I've seen from the Giorgio De Chirico, they used to live on the right side of the Spanish Steps.
Amazing.
To Jacqueline Kennedy, they used to pass in that period.
Wow.
Because to enter to Bulgaria, having a lot of photographers, they had to enter through the doors of our building.
Yeah.
And so I had the chance to cross. I mean, it was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And so I had the chance to live and smell the feeling of that fantastic period. Fantastic cars and the elegance. I paparazzi, used to be the paparazzi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lot of paparazzi.
Really?
Via Condotti in that position with that two main shops and the Caffè Greco was a fantastic.
So did that spark your kind of love for fashion and for things like that?
I'm son of lawyers family, so fashion arrived just by chance. I was supposed to do something different. I don't know why I'm here.
That's one of our questions, actually. You just ruined that, because at the end of the year, it's like, what in childhood, what did you want to be?
Many things. In fact,
Not one.
No. Because like always, when you are young, you think to do a fireman at the beginning, and then you want to be a
astronaut.
All kind of silly things. That period, I mean, was the period when Armstrong touched for the first time and landed in the moon. So it was something fantastic. And every time being very young, say, I want to do the same. I want to be a pilot. I want to be a good sailor. Sir Francis Chichester used to do the sailing world tour, and it was, as you remember, Cancer 6, and so he succeeded in doing this. So a lot of extraordinary adventures. Then finally, and in fact, my parents took me back because I used also to sail a lot. I sailed from France to Cape Town during a sailing race. I sailed with cows for the Cows Week to the Admiral's Cup. And so I had to share between my university and all these kind of sports. And finally, they said, now you have to come back to be serious.
Get serious.
Get serious. And, because
go to work.
And finally, I went back and through different stories.
Get a job.
In Florence, in fact, because I met my first wife, that was from Florence. I met her in Africa, doing a fantastic journey that was Tunisia, Algeria, Cameroon, the Republic of Central Africa, Sudan, and Egypt, tasting to Fiat Campagnola. It was the Italian Land Rover. And so that is my last real adventure. Between the other, I had the chance to do. And finally, I get married after a while. And so I moved from Rome to Florence because my wife used to work for Sotheby. And so I said, well, now, like we say, more means more for what I have to do. And I tried to enter the diplomatic career. I didn't pass the exam, very tough in Italy. then an answer to an announcement in La Nation in French, because I speak French, and my name is Napoleone, so it was essential to speak French.
I'm not going to try.
Finally, I arrived in the first French pharmaceutical group for 3 years, because they bought just a second company here in Italy, Florence. And after a few years, and this is my entrance from the main door in the fashion world, thanks to Ferragamo. Then hired me to HR manager for Ferragamo in 1986. And from there, after 3 years, an extraordinary entrepreneur, it was Marco Rivetti, owner of GFT, the touring company that signed for Armani and Valentino, the license, and he accepted to be chairman of Pitti. In that moment, it was very tough because everything was moving to Milan. And with Marco Rivetti, we started a strategy that we are now still applying after 35 years. And the idea was to improve the trade show. In that moment, quite difficult. In that period, we have lost already the women. They used to be in Florence. Italian fashion was born in Florence in February 51. All the business grew in Florence till mid of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. And then due to a lack of strategy from one side, but also of logistics, difficult to reach Florence by train was 3 hours, no airport. A lot of activities moved to Milan. Before, everything was here. Pitti Uomo and Pitti Bimbo. Uomo was born in 72, Pitti Bimbo I think in 76. And we had to relaunch this activity. Finally, we succeeded, improving the trade show organization, but mainly because we started to develop with the foundation, Pitti Discovery, a real deep, well-done cultural strategy in fashion. With, as you know, a lot of main exhibitions that we moved to the Guggenheim, to the Victorian Art Museum, to Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. And this gave the different approach and perception what was Pitti Immagine. Not just a trade show organizer, but an organizer of contemporary and cultural fashion. And on this platform, thanks to Marco Rivetti and the good work of all the others, we are doing what we are doing now. Not bad, because also in this difficult period, we are quite well performing.
And I guess that's what we want to kind of get into just now is like talking, obviously we are all here for Pitti Bimbo.
Yes.
And obviously we want to have a bit of a chat with you about the current market and what your opinion is on it at the moment.
I have to be sincere or I have to be...
You have to be honest.
Diplomatic, honest. No, in fact, what's happening is something that is not just... affecting, because it's an affection, so it's not just touching, all the fashion and manufacturing fields, all kinds of manufacturing fields. The last 4 years, when COVID arrives, so the pandemic has been, till now, the toughest period after World War II, no doubt. Somebody is speaking about Lehman Brothers. I don't remember the real impact of Lehman Brothers. It was something very financial. Of course, we have had wars. We have had Praga. We have had many other very tough periods in the Middle East. But in this case, we have had several things affecting and touching 30, 60 degrees all the world. All. The pandemic affected all the world. The inflation, the interest rates, the logistics, the cost of raw materials. Think about the Ukrainian situation with the tough problem of grain that affected Africa. They used to buy a lot of grain to feed the people in Africa. And so we never had this kind of... And now the drama between Israel and Cisjordania and so Hamas, and we don't know. We hope that one would be nothing really very serious.
It causes problem with travel.
And what Xi Jinping said for New Year's Eve, saying we will be one country. We really hope that he will not succeed in his idea, because it will be another war or huge tension. It's not nice that now you have two huge portaerei, air carriers, America there and the Philippines investing in arms and guns. It's a tough period. We never had. And this is changing a bit the scenario, but also if it's changing, of course, we are trying to find solutions to help the market, to help the consumer, to help the manufacturers. It's our role. We are living the same situation that also, if you want, the food industry that is performing not bad, but if you look at the recipes of the big surfaces, the big supermarkets, the average, at least in Italy, of the amount is much lower than used to be. That means that you are not eating less, fortunately, but you are buying in a different way. You are spending less for each day you invest or you are going in a supermarket. That is the best way to understand the change of what the French say, état d'âme. State of mind, a state of soul. People is not really very quiet at the moment. Also the rich people, in fact. I don't want to say which is because I want to be very correct. One of the main international conglomerates in the stock exchange recently had the trimestral results because they are in the stock exchange, and they recorded less 7% inflation and less 70% in the alcohol and wine business. Is one of the biggest.
Yeah.
That means, I mean, especially if you look at champagne or the rest, you can say, I mean, when you are very healthy, you don't care if you spend 100, 200, 300 euros for a bottle. You can do it easily. Yeah. But in fact, people is much more careful. And in fashion, we are also knowing, and we know very well, because here close to Florence, there is a very strong manufacturing organization, especially in accessories. Yeah. If you look at the results, men, women, where the accessories are quite important, the turnover is quite positive also in 2023. Will be more 5, 6, 7%. But nobody is speaking about the number of items that are produced. Due to the growth of the prices, the turnover and the margins are quite good. Yeah. But the number of items is much lower. Yeah. This is the truth. I mean, it's what's happening. Yeah. And people now is buying much more. It is a very good circular way and respect for our sustainability strategy. You are buying much more second-hand. It is completely different about the vintage story that used to be before. Yeah. It's a different story that works quite well.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in London, actually, about the mixed wardrobe, about the fact that obviously, you know, people are buying, or parents are buying from the high street, but also there is still in there, people are still buying, you know, as certain specific items that are, you know, so I think there's room there for vintage or like for resale or pre-loved. Yeah. But yeah, it can be, but then there's always brands. I see that there's new brands coming all the time. You know, there's always regeneration, no matter what. So, I mean, Pitti, how do you find your brands and bring them in? How do you, for Pitti Bimbo,
yes,
especially?
Of course, what we have to do, this is our main goal, is to put together demand and offer. Yeah. And the big issue today, to put together these two words, is the change of distribution. In the last 6 months, after a very good 2022 and a good beginning of 2023, of course, things are slowing down. And they are slowing down also because think about the e-commerce story. Yeah. We know very well what Farfetch has been. It was 20 billion euros capitalization. It has been sold 500 million to a Korean e-commerce organization. Yux has been bought by Richemont 5 billion 500. And before Farfetch had these troubles, the value was, because Farfetch was looking at it also to Yux and Apporté, was 3 billion, and now the value is 800 million.
We have a similar thing in the UK, Matches.com. Yes. And the same thing, has been resold at a very drop-down price.
50 million, if I'm not wrong. But in fact, this is the metaphor of what is we are passing through.
Yeah.
Just to tell you, if I'm coming specifically on the children's wear, I know very well the Italian figures. 50% of the distribution are chains or franchising, the value of distribution. Then you have 30% what we call GDO, the big surfaces, different from food, different kind of organization you have. I mean, the Esselunga, the Coop you have here. Then you have like independent stores just around 11%, 11.6%.
Yeah.
When I arrived at Pitti 35 years ago, it was around 60%, 57, 60%.
That's a huge loss. That's a huge amount of
It's a complete change. Also because, of course, the way you buy is completely different. Because you used to buy what they call the commodities of fashion for children easily also if you want Amazon. Yeah. The fashion items are bought in a different way because in fact you want to try, you want to touch, you want to have a real emotion. Yeah. But this changed also the retail and multi-brand way of distributing.
Yeah. So how do you think Pitti Bimbo can, how can you find a solution?
I can tell you, of course, we have had a very good growth after pandemia. I mean, we have not to forget that last summer, it was compulsory, it's still compulsory. Not this one, I mean, the 2021, it was compulsory to have the masks.
Yes.
So we had the equivalent to have in 2022. And now it's a new era. And the new era in our idea is doing these changes, dramatic changes worldwide. I mean, I've been recently in New York for the press conference to promote all the Pittis and Pitti Bimbo too. And as you know, you have an average of 40% of the shops, children's shops, close on Madison Avenue, Lexington Avenue. The space in the main department stores for the children is much lower. And we are also looking what they are doing. Of course, we have also clothing, apparel. But in the meantime, you have much more books, stationery, toys, digital. The offer that the children's wear shops have now to present.
More lifestyle.
Lifestyle, yes, but also something that is interesting for the children. Also because, as we know, here we have mainly from newborns to 12, 13 years. Yeah. And in this age, mainly the parents plays a major role. And the parents of these children are of the digital generation now. And so you have probably also to let them grab, because we know there are many things that we didn't thought to have before, because the market was going well. And now you have to have something that is attracting for the children and also makes sense from, for example, a tuition point of view. I'm thinking about the digital. Also the kind of toys we are using now. Of course, we have the Lego performing in a fantastic way. But what is going on, now we are seeing also small shops, toy shops opening.
But do you think that we're being unrealistic as well about our expectations? Because obviously, you were saying then as well that it's relatively soon. I mean, it was only how many seasons ago that we were still wearing masks at shows. So are we kind of being unrealistic about the climate and the fact that we're wanting to run before we can walk with it coming back? Like the golden age, you're saying.
The golden age, like always, is something past. We are not thinking to come back to what it was. It will be never what it used to be. Yeah. I can bid on this, I'm sure, because the change is a deep change, it's a real change. What we have to think now is to detect, find out what really is the major desire of the consumer and the industry that have to follow and continue to do this. Yeah. And we cannot compare the children. What it now is, it's enough to if we see the presentation of menswear now in Paris, what it has been in Milan till last Tuesday. But you see for example, much more a contemporary formal wear, much more performing kind of dressing, what we call I go out, that means people is walking much more, so you are looking also for much more performing clothing.
Do you find, or have you found that it's more difficult to convince the buyers to come back and return after, like, to a physical trade show after?
No, they need to meet. The Pitti Uomo that closed 1 week ago has been a huge success, because if you want to understand what you have to do, the only way is to merge, to be together, meet and find together the solutions. If you close yourself in your company or just in your showroom, in my opinion, you lose the opportunity to do agreements and look for the future. You need to be, like we say in Italian, complice. It means we have to study together, which is the answer to give to the market. And the only way you have, of course, I have to sell my wine, that is quite a good wine, but also it's a question of logics. Logic that you have to follow to start and find a new strategy. You have to work together to do and find out the solution. Alone, in this case, with this kind of changes, you don't go anywhere.
Yeah. And then for the future with Pitti Bimbo, do you have plans? Do you have initiatives?
Of course we have, but we are not. We like very much at Pitti not to say what we are going to do. We want
what you're doing.
It's very easy to do. I can tell you, we will be on the moon, because we are going on the moon.
You could be an astronaut.
Elon Musk and having and offering you a flight to the moon. And then, I'm joking, of course. We prefer to tell what is reachable, and we can really do in the time we have to do. For sure, the Pitti Immagine Bimbo next June will be something different from this one, to help the market, that means offer and demand, to improve and give an answer to what the market is looking for.
And we were talking to, because you had Philip Kleinbach, haven't you, with his Kidswear, and he was interested because he had licensed his Kidswear and then he'd taken it back in, hasn't he, Linda?
Yes,
and
he feels that there is a market for the higher priced Kidswear, the high design, and with licensing you tend to have less good quality fabric, and the construction is not as good. And I said to him what we've talked about, that perhaps the new mother, she doesn't want to go down that route. And he was very adamant and very much that there is a space for the very high design.
In my opinion, it's sure, it is true that the designer, the main brands, are investing a lot in the children. If you go to Harrods and you see which kind of offer is done, all the small companies, and I've seen the same in New York and also in other major capitals, the department stores. In fact, they switched on the much higher price products, and I don't know how many items they are selling.
I think that's what we were saying.
More in my opinion, of course, I hope for them they are selling quite well, but it's just a question of positioning. Then when you see the people and you walk on the Fifth Avenue, you see the children, they are dressed in Uniqlo.
It's true. It's true.
And we have in Uniqlo fantastic coats, and you spend $80, $110 if you buy something extraordinary. The same kind of performance with the product of one of the main brands is $500, $600, $800 or euros. And today, in my opinion, there is in the back head of the people say that probably it's just a question also of opportunity. Also having this money, not to spend that money. It's something that is passing through it is also due to the results I was telling you about one of the major groups performing less well in fashion and in the spirits business. This is an approach. And in my opinion, it's very correct, passing through the troubles we are passing through in this period. Then we will come back. I mean, we have had so many other examples in life of this story. Well, now it's a problem.
We've probably seen like 3 recessions in the time we've been in the business.
The recession,
not like the pandemic.
It was something, it was a joke, it was a recession, but few months and it was possible to overlap. In this case, at 4 years.
Yeah.
We already passed 4 years. We started to stop trade shows, everything. It was 2020, February 2020. 21, 22, 23,
It's
now
4 years.
24. So 4 anni.
Yeah.
So it's a long period. Never had such a... And so we are really to reposition, and very positive, because all the companies are trying to find...
They're trying to find a way.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's...
And also the distribution is changing. The way, for example, they used to sell, that was very typical multi-brand, mono-brand, department stores, and then e-commerce, and then the parallelo, also something going in different channels, is not working anymore. You have to concentrate, and we believe that it will be mainly also for the small retail, my own shops, selling less to the multi-brand. And this is what is doing, and usually a good example, Nike and Adidas. They are cutting all the shops that used to sell part of the collections. I mean, the Gazelle, this kind of very successful shoes. And say, why do I give them 2.87 to 8% margin? I prefer to, because I need it, to have it. And so they are cutting this kind of, and so a lot of shops they have to close. Then from the other side, eventually I open my big shop, or less big, it depends from the city or the region to sell. And on the other side, my direct email, not anymore to the big ones. The big issues I will sell the stocks. The stock is something that has to be handled in a different way. And this is also one of the major issues on which we have to work.
It's a consolidation, then.
Now people have to try, because things are completely changed. Till now, you had, for example, I can tell this, with Farfetch, some relations, not to reduce the price till one date. And then we wrote that during the weekend there's a reduction of 30%, being again something not very correct. It has been one of the main problems. If this is the system, it doesn't work, it will not work. Now you have to be much more serious, you have to handle by yourself this. Also, if you are small, we know some company, very small company, the fragrances, artisanal fragrances we have, where very, very small craftsmen, producer of fragrances, are opening their own small shops in main towns. They are cutting the distributors, and then they are substituting the distributors to the commerce, their own e-commerce.
I think there's opportunity, because that's, I mean, obviously, with the high street as well, and with the fact of losing lots of shops, there is opportunity, and we've talked about that before, is that brands are then taking up, because there's deals to be done, to actually take up these units and then have their own stores and distribute themselves, and then actually take in other brands as well that they know that they can actually do. So then, we are seeing that. I've talked about it before.
But going straight to the point, the only way to succeed in this strategy is take part of Pitti. No way. There's no other place to put together the people. I'm not joking, it's the truth. To start thinking about the new strategies. We have seen, we are quite old, because the company was born in February 51. And there are no other organization. We have seen many things. We have a very deep and serious and honest view of what's going on. And we trust very much in what we are saying. Because it's correct, and it's what we have to do.
And then I wanted to know, because obviously you've got such a varied amount of shows, from fashion to food to now pets. I mean, what is it like overseeing all that range?
The pets is something very, I can say, fun, serious in the meantime, because in Italy, and we started from this thought, there are 60 million animals, not just dogs. But that means that today, much more than before, due to what
more in the pandemic as well, because everybody got pets.
There is a growth. And so now you can also sell something specific, well done, through the other shops that are not the animal shops, specialized animal shops. And in my opinion, it's what you have to do. It was what I was saying to you, adding something to attract buyers that makes sense to help the children's business to grow and restart.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know if it's thinking in the right way, and will be the solution for the future, but it's one of the way to try for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, I guess the way we're talking about it is that definitely at the moment in the current climate, and I agree with you completely, is you've got to try. Like, you've just got to try initiatives.
We have to be partners for the companies, for the distributors.
Yeah.
So they have to trust in us because we are investing for them. We are a non-profit company. Our company, that is half public and half private, on the private side are the Manufacturer Association from Biella to Vicenza, Florence, Prato, makes our approach much more correct. I don't think that all is not correct, but correct from a strategy point of view, because we really work to help the industry, Italian and international.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being our guest today on Kidswear Therapy.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And if you want, I can start with the music.
Yeah, go on.